Welcome. This is Daniel Burrus with this live webinar. I'm really excited to be here with you. I know that the other times that I've done these, I've had people from all over the world, and it's so wonderful to see you all coming in because there's so many streaming in. I can't always mention names, but believe me, I'm looking down at the bottom, and it warms my heart to see so many of you joining in with us. Let me just say that we are in a interesting and profound turning point on a global level. We've had a global health pandemic. We've got a global economic pandemic. We have a global social pandemic where people are wanting equal rights and fighting for that. Once again, it seems to be an eternal fight, but we need to fight the fight. We've got Black Lives Matter as a global, not just a U.S. cause, which is fantastic because they really do matter. And this is an exciting time in my mind because when we reach a turning point, we can either go up or we can go down. We can let it bring us down, or we can be part of lifting ourselves up in multi-dimensions. So we are in a time of crisis. And when you're in a time of crisis, it's not what happens to you, because we can't control all the things that happen to us. It's what you do about it. And I think I'm looking at, is there someone that I would love to interview that could help us with that? I thought W. Mitchell is the guy to do it. He's been a friend of mine for, way over 30 years. And he's just an amazing guy. He has been a mayor of a town that saved a mountain. He started a company that employed thousands of people. He gives speeches all over the world. He's got a great book. He's an amazing guy, but he's been through some experiences that I want to tie into what we're going through right now on the social, on the economic, as well as on the health issues that we're dealing with on a global level. So Mitchell, let's bring Mitchell in right away so we can see Mitchell. There he is. How are you doing?
Dan, good morning.
Good morning. All right.
For the rest of the audience, good day.
Good day. That's true. And you're in Santa Barbara right now. I know you have a wonderful home that I've been to on Molokai in Hawaii. Beautiful spot. You're in Santa Barbara, another beautiful spot. As I've traveled around the world, everywhere I've gone, and I've been lucky to get around this wonderful planet quite a bit, I find every place to be wonderful because I think you find what you look for. And if you're looking for crap, hey, you'll find it. If you're looking for bad things, you know what? You can find it because good and bad, up and down, left and right, yin and yang, heaven and hell, all those dualities exist all the time. And we also, but where do you want to go? How do you want to gravitate? And in other words, we do have some choices. It's not what happens to you, it's what you do about it. And tying in now to you, Mitchell, many times we have a view of our future. This is where we're going. This is what we're going to be doing. This is what we see. And something happens and that future view changes. All of a sudden, the future you thought you're going to have, well, it's not there anymore. And you've got to reinvent yourself. You can be pulled down by that, or you can be lifted up by that. And again, with the virus taking place and the pandemic and shutting down and social, although I prefer to call it physical distancing, and with it in the United States, growing now in 19 states, what I would just say is freedom doesn't mean free dumb. So let's just keep that in mind as we go forward here and maybe consider wearing a mask. And with trying to rebuild our economies, because we can't be shut down forever. People need to work, they need income. And again, we need to have a level playing field when it comes to the Black Lives Matters movement. And it's never been a level playing field. And sometimes when you think it's level, things happen to you and it's not level. So let's talk about those things together right now and what you can do about it. Let's make this time together really valuable. And by the way, there's going to be a chance for question and answer. And as we talk, if you've got a question, please type it in below so that you can get in the queue, because we're going to take those questions as they come in. And by the way, it's so nice to see all those people from all over the world literally coming in saying hi. I mean, we're noticing that, believe me. I can't call out all the names because there are so many, but it's just heartwarming to see you there. It really is. So Mitchell had his future view changed twice, dramatically, boom, in an instant. One, way before I ever met him, way over 30 years ago, he was in a very fiery motorcycle accident. 65% of his body was burnt. Most people barely survive that. And by the way, if you've ever burned yourself in the kitchen or you burned yourself doing something, you know, gee, that hurts. Holy cow. 65% of your body, you know what? That's going to hurt. That's going to be tough. Not only that, but there's, you know, in Mitchell's case, it was so bad, he had fingers burnt off. I mean, that hot, that bad, face disfigured, you know, all this stuff. Although I must say, you've always been quite beautiful to me, but that's me. And he picked himself up out of that and was able to actually start a business and do some amazing things. And then he learned to fly, and then he had an airplane accident and ended up in a wheelchair as a paraplegic, way before I ever met him, over 30 years ago. So he had his future view changed a couple times. Dramatically. You thought you knew what your future was? That's not it. And yet I can tell you right now, having known this guy, he rose from the ashes. He rose from that to do amazing things. And I think he could teach us some things that can help us rise, whether you're considering an economic ashes or whether you're fighting for equal rights, which is an ongoing fight forever. But we got to fight that fight, because we have moments where we can do better, and we're at one of those moments. Economically, I don't want us to go back to the way they were. Hey, I wasn't all that great in the first place. I would like us to transform to something better. And I think from a health standpoint, I can tell you right now, the pandemic will indeed end. But you won't. What can you do? And things happen. What can you do about it? So Mitchell, let me put it this way. Let's relate it to feeling uncomfortable. Let's go there first. Now I'm relating it to the protests that are taking place. Sometimes we've all at some point felt out of place. Maybe you're a person of color that is walking in a white neighborhood and you're getting weird stares, or maybe you just really stand out and you feel weird. Or maybe it's the opposite. I mean, I can remember being in some remote areas of Kenya where I was the only white guy. And I was in some villages that had no electricity, nothing. And I might have been the first white guy they ever saw. I didn't fit in. We've all had times when we didn't fit in and felt uncomfortable. And I can remember after you recovered from your burns, you told me about walking by a school playground. And I want to have you talk about what happened, how you felt, and more importantly, how you dealt with it. Please tell us that story.
Well, Dan, I became a real expert after I was burned, and then I was home, and then I was able to go out and walk around and regaining my strength. And I became a real expert on my footwear, because I spent a lot of time looking down at my shoes, because if I looked down, then I didn't have to answer the questions that people would be asking with their eyes. They would pass me because I had to be an unusual experience for them. And I remember that day that I was passing a school playground. The kids were at recess. They were out on the playground doing what they were doing. And here comes this guy walking along the sidewalk. Just had to be one of the strangest sights that they had seen. And one of the children started to yell, "Monster, monster," because I, in their eyes, looked like a monster. And then some other kids joined that child, and then some other kids, and then they started coming towards the fence between the schoolyard and the sidewalk and calling me monster. I remember that day now, and I remember what I was feeling. I was not feeling anger. I was not feeling as if I wanted to punish them. I wanted to go inside the schoolyard. I didn't have the courage to do it. I didn't. And the teacher saw this and came over and pulled the kids away and told them not to do that. I wanted to talk to those kids because I wanted to say to those kids then, and now I have the confidence and the power to say it to audiences all around the world. stuff happens. And I'm a human being who's been in an accident and has been treated wonderfully by a lot of terrific people. And people not much different than you kids. If you could stop for a second and realize, hey, that's a human being, different than me, unusual. I wonder what his story is. And again, didn't have the confidence that day, but later on realized that stuff happens. And then you get to choose. And life is so unusual. No one watching this program right now, no one could have imagined this, what's going on in this world right now, a year ago. No one could have predicted this virus. No one could have predicted the murder of the man in Minneapolis. No one, and how it affected the world. The whole world is responding. People in New Zealand, people in South Africa, people all around the world are responding and standing up and saying, wait a second, that person isn't much different than me. And someone took their life, and we're going to change. We're going to change the world. We're going to make the world better because of the sacrifice that this man made, not willingly, not knowingly, but we're going to change the world.
Exactly. It comes to mind. That's an amazing story. Thank you for sharing that. And I had forgotten, because I had heard you share many, many years ago about looking down at your shoes a lot, and I hadn't heard that in a long time. And wow, it's hard to even imagine that. But here's what I want to get. When you're on a ship and on a plane, the captain always wants to know, the captain does not want to know how many bodies are on board. The captain does not want to know how many egos are on board. He wants to know how many souls are on board. And
SOBs, we think of using that term SOB in one way, and in fact, that you and I as pilots know when that's what they want to know, how many souls on board.
So what I'm getting at is, if you think of the body, you think of the ego, and you think of the soul. The body and the ego get us into trouble all the time. And that's where we tend to disconnect from each other. And the more we disconnect from each other, the more riots and eventual wars and deaths we have. The more we connect with each other, and I believe we're all connected at birth. It's up to us to try to stay connected and not get too disconnected. When we can see this connected the soul to soul level, that's when we have power. So, we can go beyond. You've always heard, that, we've got, you see someone that's beautiful, but in many ways, it doesn't take long to see what's inside, and what's inside can make beauty ugly or can make ugly beautiful, because again, it's all in the eye of the beholder. Let me ask you another one. Oh, go ahead. Do you have a comment? And then I have a few more. I got some more for you because you're loaded with wisdom I want to pull out of you.
This quote that I had written down a long time ago by Edward Gibbon, the classical historian and writer about ancient times. And he said, in the end, more than they wanted freedom, they wanted security. They wanted a comfortable life, and they lost it all: security, comfort, and freedom. When the Athenians finally wanted not to give to society, but for society to give to them, when the freedom they wished for most was freedom from responsibility, then Athens ceased to be free.
Oh, good one.
People being asked to put on a mask. I don't like those masks. They're uncomfortable and they fog up my glasses, and I don't really like them. But when I go in places now, I put that uncomfortable mask on so that I give other people a little more sense of freedom, not to have to contract the virus, not to have to get sick, not to have to give it to somebody else, an older person they might be around, your kids or somebody. And that concept of taking responsibility, And Stephen Covey called it response able, the ability to respond. And it's just, to me, that's so meaningful. And I have watched you do this kind of a program and this kind of a interview, and just by yourself, and you have given a lot of people the opportunity to be free by taking responsibility.
Well, I really appreciate that, because again, that was a key to yourself and being able to do all the things that you've done. And I don't want to, I mean, you brought up the mask thing. Let me just give you one thing. And the mask is the opposite of what you think. If it's an N95 mask, it'll protect you and it'll protect them, but most of us don't have those. The reason we're wearing a mask is not for you, it's for the other people. Because if you have it, and maybe you don't even know it, maybe you'll never show a symptom, but you've got it. If you cough, if you sneeze, if you wheeze, that gets out in the air and people get it. If you have a mask on, that doesn't come out. So let me just give you a point that we understand right now. If we all wore a mask, we could bring this virus to its knees. Boom, like that. Boom, like that. So you're not wearing a mask for you. You're wearing it for everybody else. And by the way, if the other person's wearing a mask, then you won't get it. It all works together. All right, enough about masks. Let's put that off to the side. I brought up the word future view, and there's another story that relates to this really well that I'd like you to share. And that is the future view concept in my very first speech 36 years ago, which, by the way, was to 1,000 inner city junior high school kids. I introduced future view, and how you view the future shapes how you act to a great extent. And by the way, how you act will shape your future. In other words, your future view will determine the future you. And again, that future view can be stolen from you, but there's a way to elevate your future view. See, if you can elevate it from where it is now, you'll end up with a better future. And I remember you telling a story about how this is after your second accident, and you were now lost the movement of your legs and lower part of your body, and you were in a wheelchair, and they wanted you to learn how to get, I believe, on a couch or on a sofa. And it was really difficult to do that. And you were just like, I'm not doing that. I ain't doing that. But a nurse gave you a future view that made you want to do it. Tell us about that story, because if we can change our future view and elevate it to something better, that future is very likely to happen, more so than we all realize. Please, Mitchell, share us that story.
It's interesting what motivates us in life.
It is.
And Beverly was my physical therapist, my nurse, my physical therapist in Denver, where I went after I broke my back. And one of the things you have to learn how to do when you're in a wheelchair and you're paralyzed is you have to learn how to transfer. You have to learn how to get out of the wheelchair into a bed, for instance, unless you like sleeping in the wheelchair, and into the bath. I find girls get closer to me now that I've learned how to take a bath and done those things. You have to learn how to transfer. So that's important. Airplane seats, car seats, all kinds of things. But Beverly wanted me to learn how to transfer onto the couch, onto the sofa in the gymnasium at Craig Hospital. And I wasn't going to do it because it was hard to do. The couch is always lower than the wheelchair. You could fall onto the couch, but it's getting back off the couch, back into the wheelchair, that's the struggle, because the couch is soft and squishy. And when you try to lift yourself by pushing on the cushion, all the cushion does is give way. So I wasn't going to do it, and she couldn't make me. Beverly was especially wise. And one day, after some really impossible things had been made possible thanks to her help, she came back over to me, put her arm around my shoulder. Mitchell, there's one more thing. I'm not going to do it, Beverly. You can't make me do it. It's stupid. She said, Mitchell, calm yourself. Relax. Mitchell, have you ever considered that there's probably two ways that you're going to get close to your future mate? One is going to be next to her in bed. One is going to be next to her on the couch. The couch is probably going to come first. 4 minutes. 4 minutes on the couch, off the couch, on the couch. I suspect many of your viewers have seen me in the Olympics when I won the gold medal for the wheelchair couch transfer event. And the question I ask audiences today is, what transfer are you waiting to achieve? What transfer are you avoiding? It's easy. Just ignore the mask. I go in places and see people who don't choose to wear one. Uh, Ignore the closeness thing of the rules about that. Just go sit anywhere you want to sit and do anything you want to do. But you just gave the prescription to the world about this virus business. And it is, would you like to stop the virus? Would you like to end it today? Put on the mask.
Yeah, we know that that's the way to do it.
Well, the solution, not the problem.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thanks for sharing that, because once again, the future view, once you had a future view of, yeah, I want to be sitting next to my future mate on a sofa, that future view changed and your behavior changed and you ended up with a future that was different. So changing our future view is really important, and elevating it is really important, because when things happen to you, it can, what I've discovered from talking to so many people that have had life-changing events, that it can pull you down into an abyss you never get out of, sometimes causing you to take your own life or whatever. Or you can use it to grow and to flourish and to transform and do significant things. So again, you've done that. Let me pull more out of you for this group before we go to questions, because you are loaded with so much wisdom. So let me put it to you this way, and this is something I've noticed in being with you at various times, because I've been very grateful to have quite a bit of time with my friend Mitchell. And I've seen you on occasion where things went very not good for you. And I won't go into all the ways that things can go not good for a guy in a wheelchair and so on. But things didn't go good, and you were having a really bad time. And every one of those times you did the same thing. I saw you, I observed you. You did the same thing. You lifted your head up, you looked around, you said, hey, it's a beautiful day. And your entire mindset shifted, boom, just like that. I'm telling you, it went boom, like that. And you were in a different state of mind. You dealt with the issue in an unbelievable way. And again, these are some pretty challenging issues. And you got through it. But in an instant, you change from this totally being brought down, totally a bummer, totally, whether, and let's face it, there have been people that have been laid off of work. There are people that can't make the paycheck. There are people that can't pay the rent. There are people that have someone that's now in the hospital on a respirator. There's people that have had all these things that can pull us down, and we can stay down. We can be trapped in that down and not be able to do anything. How in the world, where did that come from for you to be able to just get up and look around and say, it's a beautiful day, and boom, it's changed? Talk a little bit about that, because it's magical.
Somebody once told us, the truly successful person is the person who can enjoy the scenery on a detour. We're on a big detour right now. And some of us are struggling, having a terrible time, understandably. And some of us are creating things, coming up with ideas, reimagining the setting in which they happen to be placed, and really are having an incredible time. Now, does that mean everybody's having an incredible time? No, of course not. But the scenery on the detour, and how many people watching right now can remember that detour that they were last on? And how many people can remember, wow, I had the most amazing experience that I could ever, I met somebody. I met the partner in my life today because I chose not to be looking at my shoes all the time, not responding to the children yelling at me in a cruel or mean way. And I have the card that's on my website, and I trust that people will, when they go to my website, will take this card. It's under free resources. There's no charge, of course, for it.
Yeah, we just put up your website address so people could see it because I want you to go there.
And on the back are some amazing quotes, some of which I stole from you, I'm sure, Dan. And
No, you got some good ones. As a matter of fact, you've read some before, and I have that card myself. Pick a couple out for us because they're really powerful.
the one that a wonderful friend of mine shared with me one time, it's all right to look back, just don't stare.
Yeah, I love that.
A lot of time driving using our rearview mirror instead of the windshield, which they made so much bigger than the rearview mirror, so much bigger.
Yeah,
exactly. Where you want to go as opposed to dwelling on where you've been. And the one at the very top on this card says, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional.
Yeah, exactly.
So and then there's 4 or 5 more quotes on there. And the fact is, it happens. Stuff happens. I have a wonderful friend in Sydney, Australia, Leanne Christie, who sent me a poster once because when I'm in Sydney, I say every day is a great day in Sydney, Australia. I love Sydney. I love the Opera House, the whole thing. And she sent me this poster, and it's a picture looking back from the Manly Ferry at a kind of cloudy, overcast. The Opera House is not in clear view, and you can hardly see the Harbor Bridge. And it's a wonderful picture. It's a gorgeous picture. It's a beautiful picture. And on that day, there are a lot of people who are winners because they're choosing their future view. And then there's some people who are saying, well, I really don't like it when it's foggy. I really don't. Anybody who doesn't like it when they're in Sydney, Australia, too bad. You're missing.
Well, exactly.
How we choose to frame the setting in which we are, and how we choose to say, okay, this has happened. I had a guy recently on a wonderful webinar who talked about the laundry business, the dry cleaning business, which had to be really, really tough during this period of the virus stuff. And yet he had this idea of, I think you never needed to have your clothes cleaned more than during this virus. I'm wondering how many people in the cleaning business, in any kind of cleaning business, because we're sanitizing everything and cleaning everything, washing our hands, using more soap, more towels, more stuff. I wonder how many people's business just really take a big launch up because of that one idea.
Yeah, well, let me just share a couple of other resources. First of all, let's put Mitchell's website back up there one more time because he also has a fantastic book that I'm sure you would find much more wisdom in because you get a lot more in a book than you can in a short webinar, live webinar like we're doing now. I encourage you to do that. Also, I think a lot of you know that I want people to be anticipatory versus reactionary. And anyone that's interested, I'll give you a copy of my hardcover copy of my book. If you go to theaobook.com, that's the anticipatory organization. Easier to put AO in there. Give you a hardcover copy. You got to pay a few bucks for shipping, but I'll just give it to you because I know you'll like it and recommend it to a friend, and I'll do fine. We're going to go to questions in just a little bit, but I'll give you one more as long as I'm talking about being anticipatory. Next Friday, on the 19th at 11 o'clock Pacific, 1 o'clock Central, 2 Eastern, I'm going to be doing a webinar, just myself, on some cutting edge strategies of how to make sure as we come out of this pandemic, you are successful. I mean, let's face it, will parents feel it's safe to send their kids to elementary school, junior high, or college? Will you feel safe going into a restaurant or a bar or hear a band? How will you feel safe riding a plane, train, Uber, Lyft, taxi? It all comes down to one key component, and that is trust. If you have trust that you will be safe, you will go in. If you don't have trust, you ain't going in. So I'm going to talk about how to leverage trust in multiple ways to make sure that whatever you are doing, whether you're having a convention, you're having a meeting, whatever it is, trust is high. So you can go to burrus.com/hope and register for that webinar. All right, enough on the commercial sense. I just wanted to make sure you knew you could do that. I've got another one I want to bounce off you, Mitchell, and that is, given all that you have gone through, if you had one thing to share, and you didn't know I was going to ask you this, I'm going to put you on the spot, but you can do it. If I said that you could share one key message to all of the children on the planet Earth right now, and this message they would all hear and act on, and given all the experiences you've had and everything that you've learned, do you think this would really help them? And I know I'm really asking for a big one here. What might that be? What lesson, if I could say, look, all of them are watching right now, what would you tell them, Mitchell? And that's a big question. Hey, I put you on the spot. I got it. But let's see what happens.
If a 10-year-old walked up to me and asked me that question, asked me to give them that secret, that answer, I would take the last quote on this card. And I would remind them that we find only the world we look for. We find only the world we look for. What do you want to talk about? How bad it feels that somebody's not being nice to you, that your parents are struggling, that you can't do the things that you normally do this summer because the resources aren't there, or the social distancing is preventing that? Or what kind of a world would you like to have? What kind of a world would you like to create? How would you like to go if there's a Boys and Girls Club, and get involved in the Boys and Girls Club, and not only go and have fun and play there, but how about if you went there and made it even better for other kids? What if at the end of the summer you could say, the world's a better place because I chose to show up. I chose not to hide in the corner and complain about all the things I can't do, but I decided to focus on what I can do, what I might do, what could make everybody's lives better, my parents' lives better, my sisters and brothers, my friends. And we find only the world we look for. And if we're looking for the bad world and the unfortunate world and the suffering world and the I don't have world, well, that's out there. That's out there. That's available. Or if we just choose to think about, what could I do to help somebody? What could I do to help somebody who didn't have a mask, perhaps? And I carried an extra one with me. And I said, maybe you'd like to help other people not get this virus. Here's a mask for you.
Yeah. I think that's really great. And there's an action component to it. So part of it is, your view, you get what you look for. And, but secondly is, there's windows that open up, there's opportunity windows, and sometimes they come out of crisis. Actually, I think the pandemic, with the health pandemic, the economic pandemic, the social pandemic, if you want to call it that, those are all giant windows of opportunity. Let me give you another line that I think is a good one. Things don't happen to you, they happen for you. Don't happen to you, they happen for you. They're giving you the opportunity to grow and evolve, or to shrink or go down. So if you think of it in that way, whoa, that is a powerful thing to consider. There is much more that I can pull out of my friend Mitchell, but I want to give some people a chance to ask questions. So let's see if we can bring some questions up. And by the way, if you haven't put any in, type them in there. Do we have any that I can see? Let's see if, here's one. We always must remain positive in whatever situation. We spread the positive vibe. Absolutely. Thank you for that, Arthur. We spread whatever it is we put out there, positive or negative. There's that virus, and the virus of thought. By the way, it can be a positive virus creating amazing things, or a negative virus pulling it all down. There's word viruses that we can use that can hurt us. You actually said a phrase a few minutes ago I'm going to point out as an example of a word that can change things. What if I am a leader and I say, we need to be better at? What did I just say? You aren't that good. One word fixes that. You used it a few minutes ago, you just didn't realize it. Or maybe you did. And that is, we can be even better at. When you use the word even better, you got rid of the baggage. You no longer said you aren't that good. So words can make a huge difference as to what we're trying. It's kind of like we need to change the culture, or we need to change the process, or we need to change the technology, or we need to change the police. Or we need to change our educators. What are we doing? Well, right away, we're making whoever we're telling them they got to change, we're telling them they're doing something wrong and they're now going to fight you. I don't want people to fight me. Instead of we need to change, I prefer to say we need to elevate the culture to increasing relevancy based on the direction the future is going. We need to elevate the police. We need to elevate our educators and help them to be even better. Well, see, now I'm taking away the baggage. I don't have enemies. I've got people on my side, and we can move forward together. So let's make sure that we choose our words properly as we go along. All right, I gave you a lot based on that, but let's have another couple more up here. I heard W. Mitchell in Los Angeles at the PIHRA conference is what to do about it. It was awesome. Thank you.
A long time ago. That's wonderful.
Yeah. All right. Good. That was a good one. Tara, I know her. So pleased to hear my friend W. Mitchell share his wisdom. Yes. And by the way, I know you have a lot of wisdom to share too. How about another one? Kathy, hello. I'm so inspired by this discussion. Well, thank you. I know that means a lot to both Mitchell and me. We, as I've seen names and people popping up from all over the place, I know it warms my heart, and I know it warms Mitchell's heart too, because we're here for you. We're not here for us.
And as soon as we change the picture, as soon as we stop saying what I can't do and what isn't right and what isn't working, and turn again to another quote that I love: do what you can with what you have where you are. Oh. And do something. Well, I can't do this and I can't do that, and okay, good. I am one of our former presidents says he thinks about this quote. I think it's the only original quote I have in my world. He says he thinks about it every week. He guess who that president is. And I said to someone once, before I was paralyzed, there were 10,000 things I could do. Now there are 9,000. I can dwell on the 1,000 that I lost. I can focus on the 9,000 that are left. And in my lifetime, if I do a few hundred of those things, I'll be one of the most remarkable people on the planet. It's not what happens to you. It's what you do with what happens to you. And that's a choice issue. You just make it sound so easy, Mitchell, and there's not any problems and everything's, I just have to flip a switch and everything's wonderful. And I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying life is filled with choices. Life is filled with how we choose to respond to a situation. And this has been an amazingly difficult, challenging time for all kinds of reasons and things and money and stuff. Or it's been an opportunity to take a really strange experience and create some good. Create some good both in our own lives, but create some good for other people and help other people find the world that they'd like to have.
Well, using that and something else that you referred to earlier, I'll just pull out a little bit more because there were a lot of little pearls in there that could have gone unnoticed, and I don't want them to go unnoticed. And when we focus on ourselves and our woes and our problems and our issues, we can get bummed out, absolutely. But when we change our focus from us to them, in other words, the people that we might be able to help, because there's always people that we could help. Maybe it's a neighbor, maybe it's somebody living alone down the street. Maybe it's an old friend that you haven't talked to in a long time that that you haven't gotten into, and you've been socially distancing, not realizing you don't want to social distance. We're social creatures. You want to physically distance and reach out and touch someone in a significant way. So when we start focusing on others, somehow the bummer part tends to drift away, tends to go away, and we get elevated, we get energy. And in one of my early open webinars that I had, I talked about stop focusing on success, because that's all about you, and instead focus on significance, because that's what you do for others. And if you instead of trying to live a successful life, if you try to live a significant life, in other words, what would a significant father do to a son or daughter, a significant brother, a significant mother, uncle, aunt, grandma, grandpa, employer, employee? What would a significant policeman do right now? What would a significant teacher do right now, even though they may not be teaching in the normal way? Ask yourself that and do that instead. As a matter of fact, there's another concept I'll just throw out, because Mitchell, I would describe you as an extraordinary person, not an ordinary person. And I've done some study of this over the last 15 years of extraordinary people. Let me just tell you what I've learned. Some, yeah, they're kind of born extraordinary. I'll give you that. But most extraordinary people were ordinary people until they stopped doing ordinary things. When Mother Teresa was 12 years old, she didn't say, hey, when I grow up, I'm going to be Mother Teresa and really cool. No. She was an ordinary nun until all of a sudden she started becoming and doing the things that an extraordinary nun would do. I believe being extraordinary is a choice on a daily level. So if you're a student and you're going to ask a question, before you ask it, you would ask yourself, what would an extraordinary student ask? Ask that question instead. You're looking at yourself and your business being locked down, or maybe you're unemployed. You know, what would an extraordinary unemployed person do right now? You know what? You're going to find some answers. And if you then take what I said earlier and Mitchell talked about, and you direct it to what would an extraordinary person do for others? All of a sudden, you'll find your personal woes to be a lot less. And I believe, Mitchell, that you started, and I'm guessing now, but I think your accidents that happened to you helped you to shift from, I hate to use the word, but ordinary to extraordinary. I think it also helped you shift from looking at from success to significance, because I think you probably were focused on being a successful guy up until you had these accidents. And again, you emerged and took the things and did the things you needed to live a life of significance. And I would say, knowing what you've done with your life, you have done significant work all over the world, helping millions of people that may not have ever happened because of the tragedies. So again, let me go back to something I said earlier. Things don't happen to you, they happen for you. What are you doing with this?
I've been given a lot of gifts. And I had pain, and I had disappointment, and I had fear, and I had all the emotions that I could imagine. But I was surrounded by a lot of amazing people, nurses and physical therapists and doctors and people that picked me up when I fell down, and people that were there not focusing on scars, because sometimes we have internal scars that are far more debilitating than the external.
Amen to that.
And you see people in mental wheelchairs who are bound to not doing something because they can't do it the way they used to, as opposed to somebody who's fortunate enough to have a physical therapist who said, you better learn how to do the couch. That's probably going to come first.
Exactly.
It's brilliant stuff. So a lot of gifts, and the speaking business, which is what I do a fair amount of around the world, has taken me to places I might never have been and introduced me to people I might never have met. And sometimes a great old friend invites me to come on a little video experience and travel around the world sitting right in his home in Santa Barbara and say hi
Exactly.
to people in who knows how many countries, or have people that are right now choosing to take an hour of their day and saying, okay, is there something new out there? Is there any information that I might be able to take on board and use? Because my past has been whatever it's been, however good or ordinary it's been, but I think maybe there's some future views that I could have.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Well, typically when you do something like this, people don't hang on too long, and they maybe budget a half hour. We've been at 45 minutes already, which means if you're still there, you're hanging in there, and I appreciate that. So for those that are hanging in there, let's take some more questions, and we'll go a little bit longer. We won't take too much. Any advice for parents of teenagers and how they're living these challenging times? I've got some, but I'm going to let Mitchell go with his. Go ahead.
Well, again, I don't know where your teenager is right now this minute. Perhaps they're sitting next to you and spending an hour hearing another point of view, another aspect to the world. Maybe you're in Kenya and they're watching somebody in San Diego and in Santa Barbara. What are you going to share if they're not next to you? What are you going to share with them about this hour? What kind of information would be helpful for them to absorb from this hour? How many of you are going to go back to danielburrus.com/hope and sit them down next to you and say, I was watching. Please don't tell them you have to watch this. Please tell them, I watched this program earlier today and I heard some really interesting ideas, but there was a couple things that I didn't fully understand. And maybe I could understand it better if I got your feedback. So would you help me? And let's spend just however much of this hour we choose to spend, and give me some feedback, give me some ideas.
Yeah, that's good. And a couple of bullets is again, frame it up with Mitchell's background and just say he said that I used to be able to do 10,000 things. Now I can do 9,000 things. I think that gets a good perspective across. It's a good bullet for him. And again, it's not what happens to you, it's what you do about it, because things happen to us that are outside of our control. But here's the key: you got a lot more control than you think you have. And let me give you my little thing for teenagers, and that is, for a teenager, to them, unasked for advice is a form of criticism. Now, the problem is they don't ask for any advice, and they need it. So here's what you do. You got to use the Gestalt method. You have to kind of go about it from the back way. Like, when I was younger, I did this, and let them draw the conclusions. Secondly, my guess is the people that are watching this that would have been drawn to this are smart, good people that built not a sand, but a house based on sand. It's got good, solid concrete, meaning I think you laid a good values-based foundation as they were growing up, and they are going to make some mistakes, but they won't be catastrophic and major. And actually, the biggest lessons that we learn in our lives come from the mistakes and what we learn from them, rather than from the successes and what we learn from those, which is far less. So, one of the strategies I've always used is not to be worrying about failing, but to learn how to fail fast, because I can't afford to fail slow. And if I can fail fast, I can learn faster. So, I'm not afraid of failure. I would be more afraid of regret and not even trying. But anyway, so my advice is, unasked for advice is a form of criticism. Be careful, dole it out very sparingly. And I think Mitchell's advice was great. Let's see another one. Mitchell, do you work? What kind of work do you do? He does work. Go ahead.
I get up and go to work. I've had a whole ton of jobs, interesting jobs. Before this program went on today, I was talking to Dan about The fact that I drove a cable car in San Francisco.
This is before your first accident.
Yes, before I was burned. I was on my way to work that day on my motorcycle when I got burned. And I drove a San Francisco cable car. There are only 60 people in the world who do that for a living. It's the only cable car system in the world. And so that was an amazing experience for me. I've been a disc jockey. I've been a television host. I've done a bunch of stuff. And today, much of my activity is spent traveling around the world, speaking to audiences, or, thanks to Dan and some other people, getting on video programs, giving people the opportunity everywhere to have an experience that isn't readily available to them these days. And so those are several of the things that I've done. I've been a mayor. I've run for Congress. I've done a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, well, we've all had our past, but I do know that he has definitely been a busy guy doing speaking for for many, many, many decades. How about another one? What do we got? Obvious by much of the public debate we had that much of society doesn't appreciate the chance to use adverse circumstances to make things even better. What things can we do today at scale to influence more positive, confident views of the future? I'll take a first stab at that and then let you take a stab at it, Mitchell. In a world filled with uncertainty, you have to ask yourself, what are you certain about? Is it just death and taxes? And I think those of you that have followed my work know that I've developed a whole science of certainty because there are what I call hard trends at play that we know are what I call future facts. They will indeed happen. For example, are we going to be putting less in the cloud? Is the cloud going to get full? No, we're going to be putting more in the cloud. Is artificial intelligence going to go away and we're not going to have that anymore? No, it's going to get actually smarter. And after 4G and 5G, is that it? No, we're actually going to get 6G. And will older people get older or will they get younger? You know what? They're going to get older. Although I must make a little side note. I know old people that are young and young people that are old. Kind of depends on what's up here. But my point is there are thousands of things we can be certain about. So as a leader, if you are speaking with the confidence that you can come out of certainty, if you learn more about hard trends, remember I'm giving you my book so you can learn about that, then you can be speaking future facts that are not debatable because when you hear them, you know they're true. And you can get people then to make a bold move. That's my take on that. Mitchell, you got any other things you want to throw out?
Well, you have a resource right now, this hour, which I believe will be available at burrus.com/hope. Is that?
Yeah, we'll have the recording there, and also it will reside right on your social media platform right now, so you can go look at it again if you'd like.
So you have this, and you can share this with anybody you choose to share it with. You can take somebody who's having a challenge or having a great time, or they're doing quite well. Very few of us are doing so well we couldn't be doing better in the world. But you have this resource to share with anyone, and a whole library of programs from Dan. And Dan's not the only guy, but if you just spent some time with him, you do pretty well. And you can share this. You can take this and give this. This is a present you can give somebody, and it takes, for them to access it, takes clicking on a computer keyboard, a couple letters, and all of a sudden they have a whole library of opportunities.
All right. Well, we're coming up on the top of the hour. Let me put the websites back on again, and we've got Mitchell. Let's put him his website back up there. Remember, he's got a great book. And he's got that card that has a bunch of great quotes on it and some other resources. Go to wmitchell.com.
And I really encourage people, sure, buy my book, buy a video, buy audio. That's all wonderful. Feel free. But the website is filled with free stuff, overwhelmed with talks that I've given and pieces of talks that I've given and messages and written stuff. And it's filled with access.
Yeah, it is. Take advantage of that.
So without spending a penny, you can have a world's full of information from Dan's site, from mine, and others.
Thank you. Thank you. And then you can go to burrus.com/hope and register for next Friday's webinar on how to leverage in multiple ways trust to make sure that people feel confident in coming back to work, in going to a new office building, to go to a conference or whatever it is. And also remember, if you want my book, my hardcover copy of that book, go to theaobook.com and for a couple bucks, I'll send it to you. All right, that winds us up. Mitchell, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. You are a gift to the planet Earth. And I want everyone to stay healthy. And remember, if we all wore a mask, we could bring this virus to its knees. So wear a mask, stay healthy. Where everyone has stopped wearing masks, the numbers have gone up. In the US, they're up in 19 states. They're rising like crazy because they stopped wearing masks. This virus did not take a vacation. There's no cure yet. So wear that mask, stay healthy. Sending you love from both Mitchell and me. Take care, my friends.